The dim glow of bioluminescent control panels cast eerie shadows across the Zephyrian scout ship's bridge. Commander Vexis leaned forward in her command pod, her four-fingered hands dancing across the holographic display. The scent of ozone and the faint hum of the ship's energy cores filled the air. "Confirm the readings," Vexis hissed, her voice a rasp of excitement. The sensor officer, a younger Zephyrian with duller scales, tapped frantically at his console. "It's them, Commander. The energy signatures match the old records. This is definitely a human system." Vexis' slit pupils dilated. Centuries of searching, generations of scouts combing the spiral arms. And now, she would be the one to deliver the prize to the Vorac hive fleet. Her mandibles twitched in a grin. "Open a channel to the Vorac," she ordered. "Broadcast the coordinates on all frequencies. Let the galaxy know the Zephyrian Dominion has found Earth." Across the bridge, her crew erupted into chitters and clicks, their exoskeletons shimmering with triumph. The youngest among them, a fresh recruit barely out of larval stage, dared to speak up. "Commander, should we not verify?" The Vexis silenced him with a glare. "The humans are primitive. Their stealth technology is a joke. Look at them." She gestured to the main screen, where a blue-green planet hung in the void, its continents clearly visible. No orbital defenses, no fleet presence, just waiting for us. She leaned back, savoring the moment. "The Vorac will reward us well for this." 1,000 kilometers away, hidden in the shadow of a drifting asteroid, the USN Shadowblade hung motionless. Its matte, black hull absorbed every stray photon, rendering it invisible to passive scans. Inside the cramped cockpit, Captain Ryan Blake watched the Zephyrian ship's celebration unfold on his tactical display. His XO Lieutenant Chen let out a low whistle. They're really broadcasting it, unencrypted everywhere. Blake didn't smile, not yet, but his fingers tightened around the armrests of his chair. "Confirm the Vorac fleet's position." Chen's hands flew across the console. "They're already moving 6 dreadnoughts, 12 carriers. And yeah, that's the Worldbreaker leading the pack. Eta to this system, 48 hours. A quiet chuckle escaped Blake's lips. "Perfect." On the main screen, the Zephyrian ship's comms officer was now gleefully repeating the coordinates, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Human homeworld located. Repeat. Human homeworld located. Coordinates transmitting to all Vorac forces. Glory to the hive." Chen shook his head. "They really think they've won." Blake finally allowed himself a smirk. "Let them back on the Zephyrian bridge." Vexis basked in the glow of her triumph. The Vorac overlord himself had responded to her transmission, a rare honor. His massive, scarred face had filled the view screen, his mandibles dripping with anticipation. "You have served the hive well, Commander. The humans will be crushed beneath our might." Now, as her ship prepared to depart, she couldn't resist one final taunt. She opened a general comm channel, knowing the humans, if they were even listening, would hear her. "To any human vessels in range," she sneered, "consider this your only warning. The Vorac are coming. Your pitiful world will burn. You should have hidden better." Silence. A single, calm voice crackled over the comms. "Oh, we did." Vexis froze. The voice was human, male, and it came from right behind them. Her sensor officer screamed. "New contact, bearing 09, 0 point blank range." The Shadowblade decloaked in a ripple of distorted light, its railguns already humming with charge. Blake's face appeared on the Zephyrian view screen, his expression ice. "Cold. You took the bait." Vexis, the Zephyrian commander's blood ran cold. Bait. Blake leaned forward. "Tell me, did you really think we'd make it this easy?" Then the Shadowblade opened fire. The Vorac hive fleet emerged from warp space in a storm of distorted light, their blackened hulls blotting out the stars. Overlord Krax gripped the command throne of the Worldbreaker, his chitinous fingers digging into the armrests as the holographic display flickered to life. Earth hung in the center of the projection, a blue-green jewel undefended against the might of his armada. "Pathetic," Krax rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. The Zephyrians trembled before these creatures. Look at their pitiful orbital platforms. His bridge crew chittered in agreement, their multi-jointed limbs skittering across glowing control panels. The tactical display showed minimal defenses, a handful of outdated satellites, a few skeletal space stations, no energy signatures, no fleet movements, just silence. All ships, cracks broadcast across the fleet. Prepare for planetary bombardment. Leave nothing standing. 1,000 Vorac warships powered their primary weapons, the hungry maws of their plasma cannons glowing crimson. The Worldbreaker's main gun cycled up with a deep resonant hum that vibrated through the deck plates. On the bridge of the USN Defiance, Admiral Lisa Hayes watched the Vorac armada position itself through the tactical feed. Her fingers danced across the holographic controls, inputting the final authorization codes. "Activate Phase 2, she said, her voice calm. Earth shimmered. At first, Krax thought it was a trick of the light, some atmospheric distortion. Then the planet's surface rippled like disturbed water. The continents stretched, the oceans blurred, the entire world fractured into jagged polygons before dissolving into static. "What is this?" Krax roared, surging to his feet. Where Earth had been, a massive holographic projector array floated, its emitter rings still pulsing with residual energy. The orbital platforms reconfigured themselves, armored platings sliding back to reveal rows of missile batteries. The space stations unfolded like metallic flowers, becoming sleek warships with human sigils flaring to life on their hulls. Hayes' face appeared on every Vorac view screen, her expression cold. "You didn't find Earth," she said. "You found a grave." The space around the Vorac fleet erupted with light. Human stealth ships decloaked by the hundreds, their railguns already spinning up. The Defiance's main batteries fired first, twin lances of white-hot energy that speared through the Worldbreaker's forward shields like paper. Krax stumbled as the deck heaved beneath him. Evasive maneuvers, all ships, return fire. But the Vorac weapons found no purchase. Their plasma bolts passed harmlessly through the human ships, revealing them as holograms moments before the real attacks came from another vector. A squadron of Thunderhawk fighters streaked past the Worldbreaker's bridge, their rotary cannons shredding the observation windows. Atmosphere howled out into the void, carrying 3 of Krax's bridge officers with it. On the Lightseeker, Vexis watched the slaughter unfold through the Zephyrian long-range sensors. His mandibles trembled. This was their plan all along, he whispered. His tactical officer, a young Zephyrian with bioluminescent streaks, pulsing in panic, turned frantically. "Commander, the human stealth ship, the one that let us discover Earth, it is gone." Vexis felt something cold settle in his thorax. "Of course it is," he said. "We were never the hunters." Aboard the Defiance, Lieutenant Jake Morrison strapped into his fighter's cockpit, his HUD lighting up with target locks. His squadron leader's voice crackled over the comm. "Remember the playbook, boys. They think this is about defense." Morrison grinned, thumbing the safety off his missile controls. "When it is really about sending a message." The first wave of human railgun rounds tore through the Vorac formation. A dreadnought exploded spectacularly, its plasma core breaching in a silent, sun-bright flash. Secondary detonations rippled through nearby ships as their shields failed under the concentrated fire. Krax bellowed orders, but the Vorac communication channels were chaos. Human electronic warfare suites flooded every frequency with screeching static, interspersed with snippets of old Earth War songs. Hayes watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The Vorac fleet, so confident moments ago, now scrambled like insects under a magnifying glass. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All units, execute Hammerfall protocol. Leave none intact." A chorus of acknowledgements echoed back. The Defiance's main batteries cycled again, their capacitors humming with building energy. On the Federation observation post, Telrak stood frozen before the real-time battle feed. His frill, normally a subdued blue, flared bright crimson in shock. The other observers murmured around him, their various species expressions ranging from awe to terror. They They wanted the Vorac to find Earth, Telrax whispered. A Jellian observer, her feather, like sensory tendrils quivering, turned to him. This wasn't a defense, she said. Telrax watched another Vorac battleship disintegrate under human railgun fire. No, he agreed. This was a hunt, back in the maelstrom. Krax's flagship listed badly, its starboard engines venting plasma. The Overlord gripped a support beam, his compound eyes reflecting the dozens of human warships now surrounding his broken fleet. Retreat, he roared. Warp engines now. But the human ships had anticipated this too. Gravity well projectors flared to life across the battlefield, their shimmering event horizons trapping the Vorac vessels in real space. Morrison's fighter screamed past the World Breaker's bridge, his missile-lock tone warbling in his ears. He squeezed the trigger. "Welcome to the ambush," he muttered. The World Breaker's plasma core detonated with enough force to vaporize 3 nearby cruisers. The shockwave rippled outward, scattering debris through the battlefield. Vexis watched the Vorac flagship die on the Lightseeker's screens. His crew had fallen silent, their bioluminescent patterns dull with shock. "All hands," Vexis said quietly. "Power down all systems. Open a channel to the humans." His communications officer stared at him. "Commander?" Vexis closed his primary eyes. "We surrender." Aboard the Defiance, Hayes received the Superior transmission. She allowed herself a small smile before turning to her tactical officer. "Tell the Shadowblade to move to Phase 3. The galaxy isn't done being surprised today." The Superior Lightseeker's engines flared as it tried to pull away from the asteroid belt. Vexis gripped the command console, his chitinous fingers leaving grooves in the bioluminescent surface. "Full power to thrusters," he screeched. The bridge crew scrambled, their antennae twitching in panic. Outside the viewports, the dark shape of the human stealth ship Shadowblade slid between asteroids like a predator stalking prey. "Commander, the Vorac fleet is under attack." A subordinate chirp. The tactical display flickered to life, showing the massive alien armada breaking formation as railgun rounds tore through their hulls. The USN Defiance led the charge, its plasma cannons carving through 3 Vorac cruisers in a single volley. Vexis's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Impossible, their weapons. Lieutenant Jake Morrison's voice crackled over the comms. "Surprise, bugs." His Thunderhawk fighter streaked past the Lightseeker's bow, so close the Zeperians could see the human's grinning face through the cockpit. Twin missiles locked onto the scout ship's engines. "Evasive maneuvers," Vexis screamed. The ship lurched sideways, but it was too late. The missiles impacted with a deafening roar, sending the bridge crew tumbling. Emergency lights bathed the room in crimson as alarms wailed. On the Defiance's bridge, Admiral Lisa Hayes watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. "All squadrons, focus fire on the dreadnoughts. Leave the scouts alive. We want them to carry the message." A chorus of "Yes, ma'am" echoed through the comms. Morrison Barrel rolled between 2 Vorac fighters, his targeting computer beeping furiously. "You boys ever hear of a turkey shoot?" He squeezed the trigger, and his railguns punched through both enemy ships in a single burst. Vexis struggled to his feet, his exoskeleton cracked from the impact. The Lightseeker's systems were failing, but the sensors still worked. What they showed made his thorax go cold. The Vorac fleet, over 200 ships strong, was being systematically dismantled. Human vessels moved with terrifying coordination, striking weak points with surgical precision. "Commander," a subordinate gasped. "The planet. Look." Vexis turned to the main viewer. Earth's image flickered, then dissolved like smoke. In its place, a massive orbital defense grid materialized, its guns already charging. A new voice cut through the chaos, Captain Blake transmitting from the Shadowblade. "You really thought we'd leave our home undefended?" Vexis's antennae drooped. It was a projection. Morrison's fighter streaked past again, this time slowing to hover just outside the crippled Lightseeker's viewport. He tapped his helmet mockingly. "Ding ding ding, give the bug a prize." The Thunderhawk's wingmate, Lieutenant Chen, chimed in. You guys spent centuries looking for Earth. Congrats. You found our shooting range. Vexis's mind raced. The coordinates, the transmissions, the leaked data. All of it had been bait. The humans had known the Zephyrians were searching. They'd let themselves be found. A massive explosion lit up the tactical display as the Vorac flagship, the World Breaker, erupted into flames. Overlord Krax's furious roar echoed across all frequencies. Traitors, deceivers. Admiral Hayes's voice was ice. You came for a conquest, Krax. You get annihilation instead. Morrison locked onto the Lightseeker's remaining engines. Last chance, Vexis, surrender, or join the scrap heap. The Zephyrian commander hesitated. His ship was crippled. His allies were being slaughtered. And the humans, the supposedly primitive, fragile humans, were laughing at them. Vexis activated the comm. We yield. Morrison's grin was audible. Smart choice. He peeled away, his fighter joining the rest of the squadron as they turned their guns on the remaining Vorac forces. On the Defiance's bridge, Hayes allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 complete. Signal the Atlantica. Tell them to prepare the welcome party. A junior officer blinked. Ma'am, there is more? Hayes didn't answer. She just watched as the last Vorac dreadnought broke apart under the weight of human firepower. Vexis slumped in his chair, his crew staring at him in shock. The Lightseeker's systems were failing, but the comms still worked. He opened a channel to the nearest Federation outpost, his voice trembling. This is Zephyrian Scout Commander Vexis, the humans. They were waiting for us, they knew. They wanted us to come. Static hissed for a moment before a new voice responded, Federation Observer Telrax, his usually calm tone edged with fear. What are you saying, Commander? Vexis looked at the burning remnants of the Vorac fleet. We didn't find Earth. We walked into a slaughterhouse. Morrison's fighter streaked past one last time, his parting words dripping with amusement. Tell your friends. Then the channel went dead, leaving only the screams of dying ships and the cold, silent laughter of victorious humanity. The observation post hung in silent orbit, its curved viewports reflecting the distant flashes of battle. Federation observer Telrax adjusted his frill, the delicate membranes trembling as he stared at the holographic displays. The screens flickered with real-time data. Vorac dreadnoughts burning, Zephyrian scouts fleeing in panic, human ships striking with surgical precision. His 4 hands clenched the railing. This isn't possible, he whispered. Beside him, his assistant, a young Ceralian named Vix, floated nervously, her orb like eyes pulsing with anxiety. The humans, they knew, she said, her telepathic voice trembling. They let the Zephyrians find Earth. Telrax's frill stood fully erect, a sign of shock among his species. His mind raced. The Federation had monitored Earth for centuries, dismissing humanity as a minor power, fragile, divided, unworthy of serious consideration. Now the truth unfolded before him in fire and steel. A transmission crackled through the observation post speakers, Admiral Hayes' voice, calm and controlled. Vorac fleet, this is your final warning, surrender or be destroyed. The response was a garbled roar from Overlord Krax, half fury, half disbelief. You tricked us, that planet. It was a lie. Hayes didn't bother with theatrics, confirmed. Telrax's stomachs twisted. He turned to Vix. Pull up the initial scans, the ones from when the Zephyrians first detected Earth. The holograms shifted, replaying the moment the Zephyrian scout ship had triumphantly broadcast Earth's coordinates. The planet's image shimmered, just slightly at the edges. Telrax had missed it before. They all had. It's a projection. Vix realized, her voice hushed. A decoy. Telrax's mind reeled. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just defended against an invasion, they had engineered it. Lured the Vorac into a killing field, made them believe they'd found the prize. On the main display, another Vorac dreadnought erupted into flames, its hull splitting under concentrated railgun fire. Human fighters darted through the debris, their movements too precise, too prepared. "This wasn't a defense," Telrax murmured. "It was a hunt." A new transmission cut through the chaos, Captain Blake's voice sharp with satisfaction. "All units, primary objective complete. Vorac command ship is down. Proceed to mop up." Telrax's frill didn't relax. He had witnessed battles before, skirmishes between the Zeperian collective and the Vorac hive, even the occasional Federation intervention. But this was different. The humans fought like they'd written the script. Vic's orbs dimmed with dread. "Observer. What do we report to the Council?" Telrax didn't answer immediately. His gaze locked onto the hologram of Admiral Hayes, her face unreadable as she monitored the slaughter. Then slowly he reached for the comms. "Open a channel to the Federation Council, priority override." The link established with a soft chime. The council chamber appeared in miniature, alien representatives of a dozen species, their expressions ranging from curiosity to irritation. High Chancellor Gorax, a towering crawl, leaned forward. "Observer Telrax, this is highly irregular." "Telrax didn't waste time, Chancellor. The humans have engaged the Vorac fleet. The battle is not what we expected." Gorax's crest flared. "Elaborate." A screen flickered to life beside Telrax, displaying the battle's aftermath. Vorac ships drifted, lifeless. Human vessels moved among them, collecting prisoners, securing wreckage, efficient, merciless. "The planet the Zeperians discovered was a fabrication," Telrax said. "A holographic projection. The humans allowed the coordinates to be leaked. They wanted the Vorac to attack." Silence, then murmurs, disbelief. Councillor Vessia, a serpentine shith, hissed. "Impossible. No species could maintain a planetary-scale deception for so long." Telrax's frill tightened, and yet, they did. The hologram shifted again, zooming in on Admiral Hayes as she addressed her fleet. "All units, stand down. Primary threat neutralized. Begin recovery operations." Her words were calm, routine, as if this were just another exercise. Gorax's voice, when it came, was uncharacteristically quiet. "Observer, what is their casualty count?" Telrax checked the data. His frill went rigid. "Minimal." Another beat of silence. Then, from the depths of the council chamber, a single, hushed whisper, unidentified but unmistakably awed. "They played them." Telrax exhaled slowly. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. They'd orchestrated a demonstration, a message to the galaxy, and the Federation had front-row seats. Vic's voice was barely audible. "What do we do now?" Telrax watched as the last Vorac ship, crippled and bleeding atmosphere, was boarded by human marines. No fanfare, no gloating, just cold, professional efficiency. "We tell the truth," he said softly. "We tell them humanity let the Vorac come, and we tell them they were never in danger." The council chamber erupted into chaos. Demands for explanations, calls for emergency sessions, frightened speculation. Telrax ignored it all. His eyes remained fixed on the hologram, on the human fleet, already regrouping, already preparing for whatever came next. Because one thing was certain now. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. The Vorac armada burned in the void, their shattered hulls drifting like funeral pyres. Crack's flagship, the Worldbreaker, listed to starboard, its once proud spires now twisted wreckage. The Overlord clutched his command throne, his carapace cracked from the force of the last railgun impact. His remaining eyes flickered across the tactical display. Human ships were everywhere, their sleek silhouettes weaving through the debris with predatory grace. "Where are they coming from?" Crax roared, his mandibles spraying ichor. Scans showed no reinforcements. A junior officer trembled, his antennae twitching. "Sire, our sensors. They're detecting a massive energy signature. It's not from the Decoy." On the cracked view screen, The holographic Earth flickered one last time before dissolving into static. Then space itself seemed to tear. A blue, white sphere shimmered into existence, its continents unmistakable even from this distance. Oceans glittered under the light of a yellow sun. Orbiting it, a ring of defense platforms, their weapon ports humming to life. Crack's breath hitched. That's impossible. Captain Blake's voice crackled over the comms, calm as a surgeon's scalpel. Vorac Overlord Cracks, you wanted Earth. Here it is. The USN Atlantica decloaked beside the planet, its kilometer-long hull bristling with missile pods. Dozens more human ships followed, emerging from stealth like ghosts, materializing for the kill. Crack's claws dug into his throne. A second fleet. How? Didn't your scouts wonder why our homeworld had no lunar colonies? Blake's smirk was audible. No asteroid mines, just a nice juicy target waiting to be plucked. A Vorac tactical officer suddenly stiffened. Sire, the star charts. This system's gravitational profile doesn't match the records. We're not even in the Milky Way. Silence gripped the bridge. Crack's remaining limbs began to shake. On the Atlantica's bridge, Admiral Hayes watched the Vorac fleet's panic with cold satisfaction. Activate the Solstice Protocol. Across the real Earth's orbital defenses, hexagonal panels unfolded. Gravitic distorters flared to life, bending starlight around the planet in a shimmering cocoon. The defense platforms locked onto the surviving Vorac ships. Crack's final transmission was a snarl of rage and disbelief. You hid your homeworld in another galaxy? Blake adjusted his cap. Correction. We hid it in your records, right next to the decoy coordinates we let you steal. The first orbital railgun fired. A tungsten round the size of a skyscraper punched through the Worldbreaker's fractured hull. Cracks had one last glimpse of the human fleet, and the planet dead died failing to reach before his world turned to fire. On the Federation observation post, Telrac's frill stood rigid. The holographic display showed the entire Vorac armada being systematically annihilated. Human fighters darted through the chaos, their pilots whooping over open channels. By the void, whispered a Zelthan observer. They wanted the Vorac to attack. Telrac's claws trembled around his datapad. The pieces clicked together, the leaked Earth coordinates, the conveniently undefended decoy, the way human patrols had always accidentally let Superior scouts slip through. This wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration. A junior analyst turned, his eye stalks quivering. Sir, long-range scans are picking up something else, near the human homeworld's moon. The image resolved massive shipyards, hundreds of half-constructed dreadnoughts, a skeletal framework that could only be a planet. Killer Telrac's blood ran cold. They're not hiding because they're weak. On the Atlantica's observation deck, Admiral Hayes sipped coffee as the last Vorac ship exploded. A comm officer grinned. The Superior scout ships trying to flee MAM orders? Hayes didn't even look up. Let them go, the officer blinked, Ma'am. Summer needs to tell the story. Hayes set down her cup. Make sure they describe the size of the orbital guns. A light year away, Vexis scout ship tumbled through warp space. The Superior commander clutched his mangled sensory horn, replaying the battle in his mind. The decoy, the hidden fleet. The sheer scale of humanity's deception. His navigator whimpered. Commander, what do we report? Vexis stared at the blood on his claws, Crack's last furious transmission still echoing in his skull. The truth, he whispered, that we never stood a chance. On Earth's surface, children looked up as the sky shimmered. The cloaking field re-engaged. The planet vanished again, leaving only stars and the fading light of dying warships. In a quiet office beneath Geneva, a human general marked a red X through the Vorac hive's name on a very long list. Next, he murmured, the Federation Council chambers erupted into chaos. Alien representatives shouted over each other, their voices blending into a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. The massive circular room, usually a model of interstellar diplomacy, looked more like a panicked marketplace. Holographic displays flickered with battle footage, human ships tearing through the Vorac armada, the Decoy Earth fracturing into nothingness. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood perfectly still at the human delegation's podium. Her uniform was crisp, her expression unreadable. Around her, human diplomats remained seated, their calm a stark contrast to the frenzy around them. Telrax, the Federation observer, pushed through the crowd, his frill flaring in agitation. This was a violation of every interstellar accord, he hissed, slamming a clawed hand on the podium. You lured them into a massacre. Hayes didn't blink. We defended ourselves by tricking an entire species into attacking a fake world. As a Pyrian delegate screeched, his bioluminescent markings pulsing red with fury. You made us complicit in genocide. Hayes turned slowly, her gaze sweeping the room. The noise died down, if only because every species in the chamber wanted to hear her response. The Vorac hive fleet has consumed 17 worlds in the last century, she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. They don't negotiate, they don't surrender, they eat, and the Federation's response. She tapped a control on her wrist. A hologram flickered to life. Federation Council records, vote after vote, all marked abstain. You did nothing. Telrac's frill twitched. We believed in peaceful solutions. Peace doesn't work with predators, Hayes interrupted. So we gave them what they wanted. A target, a feast. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper the entire chamber strained to hear. And then we showed them what happens when you hunt humans. The room went utterly silent. A Cerelion diplomat, her floating orbs wide with shock, finally spoke. You engineered this from the beginning. Hayes didn't deny it. The Zephyrian scouts were never going to find Earth. Not really. We let them intercept those coordinates. We let them think they'd won. Her lips curled into something too sharp to be a smile. And the Vorac, they never stood a chance. Telrac staggered back as if struck. You used us, he breathed, the Federation. Our scouts, our communications networks. All of it, just bait. Hayes tilted her head. You left us no choice. The uproar that followed was deafening. Delegates from a dozen species surged to their feet, shouting accusations, demands, threats. A Quarian ambassador slammed his tail against the floor, shattering a section of reinforced glass. This is an act of war, he bellowed. Hayes didn't flinch. She waited until the noise peaked, then tapped her wrist again. Every screen in the chamber switched to the same image, the USN Defiance, hovering over the ruins of the Vorac fleet. Its railguns glowed, fully charged. The room froze. We didn't come here to ask permission, Hayes said softly. We came to deliver a message. She straightened, her voice ringing clear. Humanity isn't hiding anymore. And if you think this was ruthless, she let the words hang. Try us. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, one by one, the delegates sat back down. Telrax was the last. His frill lay flat against his skull, his claws trembling. You played the entire galaxy, he whispered. Hayes finally smiled. And you let us. The silence that followed was heavier than any outburst. The kind of silence that came with realization that the rules had changed, that humanity had rewritten them. A young human aide, barely out of the academy, leaned toward Hayes. Do you think they'll retaliate? Hayes didn't take her eyes off the council. No. How can you be sure? She nodded toward the screens, still displaying the defiance. Because now they know something far worse than our strength. The aide swallowed. What's that? Hayes turned, her smile gone. Our patience across the chamber, Telrax shuddered. The vote to censure humanity failed within the hour. The victory parade stretched through the capital's grand boulevard. A river of humanity celebrating under a sky streaked with the contrails of fighter jets. Children laughed as they chased each other. Tiny plastic warships clutched in their hands. The air smelled of roasted meats and fresh bread, the sounds of music and cheering drowning out the distant hum of starship engines. Jake Morrison adjusted his dress uniform, the weight of the newly pinned Medal of Valor resting against his chest. A group of cadets, some no older than 16, stared at him with wide eyes. One, a freckled girl with her hair tied back in a regulation bun, reached out to touch the metal. "Did you really blow up a Vorac dreadnought, sir?" she asked. Jake crouched to her level, grinning. "Nah, I blew up 3. The cadets erupted into laughter, their voices bright against the backdrop of marching bands and roaring crowds. Nearby, a row of Zeperian prisoners stood behind a reinforced barrier, their bioluminescent skin dull with defeat. Vexis, his once proud frill now limp, watched the celebrations with narrowed eyes. "You made fools of us," he hissed as Jake approached. Jake leaned against the barrier, arms crossed. "Nah, you did that yourselves." Vexis' mandibles twitched. All this, the decoy, the ambush, just to prove a point. Jake's grin faded. He turned, gesturing to the crowd, the families, the children, the old veterans with tears in their eyes. "No, to keep them safe." A holographic display flickered to life above the city square, projecting Admiral Hayes' face across the skyline. The crowd fell silent as her voice boomed over the speakers. "Today we celebrate not just a victory, but a revelation," she said. "The galaxy thought humanity was weak. They thought we hid because we feared them." Her image shifted, showing the ruins of the Vorac fleet, the shattered hulls of Zeperian scouts. Now they know the truth. The screen cut to footage of the real Earth, blue, vibrant, untouched, its orbital defenses humming with dormant power. "We hid because we chose to," Hayes continued. "Because we knew the moment they saw us as a threat, they'd come, and we let them." A murmur rippled through the alien prisoners. Vex's claws dug into the barrier. "You used us," he spat. Jake shrugged. "And you walked right into it." Across the plaza, Federation observers huddled together, their communicators buzzing with frantic reports. Telrax, his frill standing rigid with shock, pushed through the crowd toward Jake. "This changes everything," the Cerellian whispered. "The Federation, they're terrified of you now." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Good," Telrax hesitated. "You don't understand. They'll see this as an act of aggression." They'll what?" Jake interrupted. "Attack us. Try to find Earth again." He gestured to the hologram still hovering above them. "Let them. We've got plenty more decoys where that came from." A slow, dawning horror crept over Telrax's face. "You want them to come?" Jake didn't answer. He just turned back to the cadets, ruffling the freckled girl's hair as she grinned up at him. The parade marched on. Later, in the shadows of the victory celebrations, Admiral Hayes stood before the Federation Council's emergency session. The chamber buzzed with outrage, alien delegates shouting over each other in a dozen languages. Hayes waited. When the noise finally died, she placed a single data chip on the podium. "This," she said, "is a list of every hidden colony, every cloaked shipyard, every reserve fleet humanity has built over the last 2 centuries. The room went dead silent. Hayes smirked. "It's also fake." She turned and walked out, leaving the galaxy's most powerful leaders staring at an empty screen. Outside, Jake leaned against a railing, watching the fireworks paint the sky in red and gold. Vexis, now shackled and flanked by guards, limped up beside him. "You'll never win," the Zeperian muttered. "The Federation will unite against you. The Vorac will rebuild. This isn't over." Jake took a long sip of his drink. "Yeah," he said, "we're counting on it." The last firework burst overhead, scattering embers like falling stars. Somewhere in the crowd, a child laughed, clutching her toy warship tight, and far, far away, hidden behind layers of deception and lies, the real Earth slept, safe and unseen.